For those of you in person and for those of you who might be joining us online or at a later time, we welcome you to this Weber County work session on this Monday, the 11th of March. We have a full quorum here today. Our first discussion is an action for approval of the minutes for the work session that was held on Monday, March the 4th. I'll entertain a motion for change, approval, or denial. What's your pleasure, commissioners?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve the minutes.
That'll be an approval. Is that one of your three options?
Yes,
I'll second it then.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Our next item for discussion is a discussion regarding the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District Agreement. We have Tucker Waite, Gary Myers, Sean Wilkinson, Cortland Erickson. Welcome, gentlemen. Tucker, guess what? You are listed first. How would you like to proceed?
I'll go ahead and talk, I guess. You're asking if I want to do it or not, so go ahead. I'll just introduce this real quick. So this is an interlocal agreement between us and Weber Basin Water for the 12th Street project. They have an old 16-inch line that's not in very good shape. And so this whole agreement was brought forth because obviously we were redoing that roadway. We wanted them to get in there and replace their water line because we didn't want them going in after the fact and cutting up the road. So this stems from that. We want to work together to replace that line. Plus they wanted to upsize their line at the same time so that they can get the capacity they need for out west.
Wait, doesn't government always lay the road down first and then cut trenches in it
That's
after?
how we're doing this. That's how it's-
Why are we changing
Why are we
the
thinking
normal
ahead?
way of business?
That's an amazing
Okay.
thing.
We were trying to think ahead. So this agreement was back in 2016. Well, I don't think any of you guys were here at that point. So we just wanted to kind of bring this to your knowledge, I guess. And we kind of were talking to Cortland about this, and we're wanting to kind of amend this one to include a new cost estimate for this next phase that we're gonna be doing. So we can have the appropriate cost share. So in this agreement, it just mentions that we will, that we will share the cost of the water line project. None of the betterment, but just if we were to replace that 16-inch. So there's a few exhibits at the back end that kind of show that Weber County and Weber Basin Water would split the cost of replacing the existing water line 50-50. So that's kind of what we just want to make sure you guys are aware of that and are okay with that. And that's what we push going forward with this amended agreement, is just keep it 50-50 for the 16-inch line, and then they're actually doing a 30-inch line for the next phase. So they'll pay for the bigger pipe, I guess.
Is that proportionately fair?
It is, and I didn't mean
Oh, go
that.
ahead. I like it.
So as we've modified 12th Street, it actually, puts the cover. We negate what their minimum cover is they need to have over the top of their pipe. So, it essentially requires their pipe to be lowered. And since the existing pipe is significantly undersized for what future growth will be, that's where the difference is between versus the baseline. This agreement references the 16-inch pipe as a baseline schedule. And that's the difference between the baseline and the upsize. Now, historically, the previous two phases they did as a 24-inch upsize from a 16 to a 24. However, when those sections were done, the inland port was never contemplated. The development that we're seeing, the growth projections we're seeing was not contemplated. And so as such, this next phase, they'll upsize from a 24 to a 30. So we only pay a 50-50 cost share on the baseline, which would be the replacement of the in-kind pipe, 50-50, and they will cover the upsize materials, installation, et cetera.
Mr. Wilkinson,
Yes.
any comments from you, sir?
They've reviewed it with me. I have no more comments.
You've been in the business a long time and you were here in 2016. Do you find this to be fair?
I do.
Thank you. Gage, this is in your portfolio. Comments or questions?
Well, question, so in this interest of disclosure, which you know
Please.
I like to do.
Yes, you do.
So, because if not, somebody will definitely write an article about it. So as a recent appointee, I serve on the Weber Basin Board. This contract was put in 2016,
Mhm.
quite a while before I was ever on the board.
Yep.
and before I was county commissioner. So what we're doing is just taking this 2016 and basically
Applying it to this phase.
applying it to this case. Is that correct?
That's correct,
So
Commissioner.
we're not. So Cortland, I got a conflict as a Weber Basin board member to vote on this.
Well, that would be something that, yeah, I think in situations like that,
In situations like
Sure.
this, it might be just on the safe side.
there have been times when we've dealt with that, like with other districts and a member of the county commission and a member of that board. But we're the same person. Yeah, I think the advice we've given has typically been to recuse from the vote.
Okay, all right,
So
I'll take that advice. I'll recuse myself, even though state statute requires public officials to officially vote on
Yeah,
items like that, so.
let's talk to Chris Crockett before any vote actually comes up in an
Oh,
official
okay,
meeting,
so we're just, this will have to come before the commission.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'll wait to hear
So,
legal, just to be perfectly
because I know we did kind of back
perfectly
away.
transparent, but I
Yeah.
think if you check with Chris Crockett, we checked before.
We did kind of
State-
back away from recusing. as
State
long as
code
it's
doesn't-
disclosed.
State code doesn't allow recusal.
So, yeah. Let's
It,
check
re-
on
it
that.
requires potential notice of conflict,
Right.
but it doesn't require or even allow recusal. So before
I
that
think
board
it does
meeting,
in some cases, but it depends, and I'd have to
Right.
refresh my.
Only
memory
if
of
there
that.
was a personal,
personal,
there was personal gain. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
and there's no personal gain in this situation, just for
You
everybody.
don't own Weaver Basin?
I don't know. I own a little, I own a little Weaver Basin water, but I pay them for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just so you know. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this.
I'd say the same, but I'd add the word handsomely.
Yeah.
Pay them handsomely for it.
So we just wanted to make you aware of this agreement, and then we're gonna start working on the amended contract, and we'll include the updated cost estimate for this phase. So yeah, it'll be probably a month or two before we bring this contract or this agreement back to the commission.
Right. And were you gonna talk also about the coordination with the contractor?
Yeah, I guess we can. So I guess part of this agreement, I think it said that, maybe I'm wrong, but we're just gonna have, so we're putting the bid out, or we're putting out the bid, this next phase of 12th Street, we're hoping this Thursday, if everything goes good. And we're just gonna have one single contractor for us, meaning the county of the roadway project, storm drain, stuff like that, and also Weaver Basin's water line. It's just easier that way. You don't have two contractors and, stepping on each other's toes and stuff like that.
And you'll make sure this is brought before the commission?
Yes, yep, this contract will.
Yes.
So I think this agreement that we're gonna have will kind of specify even more that we're gonna be over that contract. That includes a contractor for Weaver Basin Water and for Weaver County.
Right, and this being an interlocal agreement, that will specify in here that if we go that way, the district is authorizing the county to enter into the contract with the contractor and basically be the single point of contact for the contractor. We'll update it. I mean, this talks about
There's a lot.
contracting with CRS engineers, which I think we have a different.
Yeah,
different.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
won't be on there, right? It'll be a
Right,
different
it'll be
contract.
someone different.
Yep, just being clear.
Right, so anyway, there are some updates here, but we will specify everything and get that before you.
Okay,
That'd be great.
Commissioner Bolos.
No questions.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I think you've got the green light to make sure this is put on and noticed on a commission agenda.
Perfect.
Great. Any other questions regarding this?
Not for me.
Is Mr. Slater outside?
Was Brett? come
Kylie,
in?
next one.
Oh, I don't know.
Not Brett, not you dot, not you dot. It's not you dot Slater.
I don't know. Let me check and see.
There's no one here yet, Jim.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion to saunter.
Second.
Saunter for, great, well, motion will saunter, motion and second, all in favor?
Bye.
I will saunter till 1:30.
Perfect.
You don't need to.
Welcome back to our commission work session on this, the Monday, the 11th of March. Our next item was listed as number 3 on the agenda. It's a discussion regarding traffic issues. We've got Gary Myers, Sean Wilkinson, and Sergeant Kylie Slater. Let's start with you, Gary, on this, if that's okay.
You bet. Commissioners, thanks for your time today. We had a few locations brought to our attention where there's some speeding issues going on.
No.
Yeah, believe it
Really?
or not, people don't obey the laws. The first one, in response to this, we set up our radar counters that my department has. We have 2 of them. One of them, the first one, was located at 3500 west and 1800 south. We got a report from residents that there were individuals racing and just driving significantly faster than they should have. So we set it up last week. We ran our counters from Thursday till this morning. And lo and behold, we did have some outrageous numbers. In this area,
What does the word outrageous mean?
I'm glad you asked, Commissioner. Posted speed out there is 40 miles an hour.
Okay,
I have a few speeds that ticked up into the 90s. Quite a few
On
in the
3,500 or 18?
on 1800.
On 1,800.
I have quite a few that are in the 70s and 80s.
That's problematic.
I basically highlighted anything that was 60 miles an hour and above. And those occurrences are right here. So, I can kind of identify, excuse me, roughly what time they were, and I intend to get these reports over to Sergeant Slater here, so he's got a good feel for what we saw as well too. But, the challenge is 1800 south is stop controlled when it hits 3500 west. So as residents, as users, I shouldn't say residents, as users are traveling east or west on 1800, the stop sign forces them to stop at 3500, and then they're just doing what they're doing on either side.
Is this west of 35?
It's on both sides. I set a counter up on each side. Great question. Ironically, the western side had slightly higher speeds. The eastern side, I had some in the 80s, some 83s. Oh, I did have a 91 there as well too. So.
could it be the same person back and forth?
So it doesn't tell me which vehicle it is. It's pretty nondescript on the description of anything. It just tells me a time, a date stamp, and what their speed was at that moment in time.
Direction?
We happen to know that just because of where we put them and how we place them. So, yeah, and it's probably both ways, honestly. So.
What's your suggestion there, or Kylie, do you want to make any part of a presentation or?
No, so the sheriff's office has 4-speed trailers, and Gary and I have talked a bunch about this. I mean, speeding is the new epidemic. It is, I mean, we're driving quicker vehicles, they're quieter, you know, and so like from the 100,000-foot view, people just don't pay attention. And then we're dealing with distracted driving. And so that's kind of where the speed issue kind of comes into play. So the trailers, we've had it out there for a month. 50% of the time, people slow down. Between 50 to 58% of the time, when people see the speed trailer, it'll actually drop in speed. So then we can kind of determine. So the electronic speed signs, in my opinion, are helpful, but again, they only help those that are paying attention. So we know it's an issue. We can go sit out there and the presence does what it's supposed to, with getting people to obey the speed. Like we're not seeing the 90s, or personally, like we're not catching the 90 or even 70 mile an hour. I've had a guy paying attention to the speed, school bus. There's a school bus stop down there right now that it's like 2400 south. So substantially south of where the intersection is. But we've been patrolling that quite a bit, just trying to catch the people running the school bus lights. But for instance, on that, not to be down the hole, but we have 21 bus routes in the county that are high risk bus routes that people just blatantly run the lights. So, wow, with one complaint, I got 5 more, and it's just whack-a-mole trying to figure out
Yeah.
where to,
Where you go next?
where to go next. So I don't disagree that, I pulled up our numbers for, we just moved it, I think 2 weeks ago. My internet's running slow. The trailer from out, we had it at 2100 south to capture the north and the south. And so it'll capture one direction each time. So we kept it 2.5 weeks, one direction, did it 2.5 weeks the next. And I mean, we've got 76 and 90 mile an hour. So whether that's a motorcycle, dirt bike, side by side, we don't know that, but
How does that, oh, cause the thing that shows the speed, I was gonna say.
Yeah,
With the length of the vehicle with I'm thinking about the rubber strip. but-
yeah, it just bounces it off the front of the vehicle. My unit is about the size of Kylie's, notepad there.
Hmm.
And I can bolt mine to
Really?
power pole, fence post, sign, tree.
Okay,
They're not seeing it, right? There's no way they can see it. I can set it up and I can run it for 2 weeks straight. It's got a great battery life and then I bring it back and it generates this report.
thank you for sharing that.
So the challenge is, the difference is mine is, they can't see it. They don't react. They have no reason to react.
Yeah.
The police departments, theirs is much more obvious that they're being watched, right? And so, but yeah, the challenge is for sheriff, they're understaffed and overtaxed on this kind of stuff. You can't afford to just stick a deputy out there at all times, right? You know, and so I don't know. And I obviously, didn't get these numbers till this morning when we picked these up. We picked my counter up about 10:30, 11 o'clock this morning. And so don't really haven't had a chance to sit down and show Sergeant Slater these numbers just yet, other than just what I've mentioned to him here.
so just kind of idea what our traffic, so this will give us a count of vehicles. I'm sure yours does as well.
Yep.
So from January 23rd to March 8th, there were 114,685 vehicles that have registered combined between the north and the south, so about 50%
Off of 2100 south,
off of 3,500
off of
west.
3500.
We just had the trailer at 2,100.
Oh, I got it. So you're still monitoring.
Same area,
Okay.
yeah, just a couple blocks south.
Got it.
And on this road alone, I had 1,500 vehicles from Thursday of last week until this morning.
1500?
1,500.
Hmm.
1475.
Thursday, all day Thursday?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner. We set it up. We started counting at, 4 PM on the 4th, which the 4th was
Monday.
Monday. Oh, that's interesting. Hold on. That must be, yeah, I must have my dates off. At any rate,
Are those, high speeds, both weekdays and weekends?
they are.
Hmm.
They are. Weirdly enough, there's kind of a recurring time. They really like to go fast at 3 AM, 7 to 9 AM,
Hmm.
3 to 5 PM, and then there's somebody out there at 1 AM that's in a hurry as well too.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, so the request we got
Wow.
for this intersection acknowledged the new high school going in with people already speeding. What does that do? So what they're asking for is a four-way stop at that intersection. Now, Gary, I wanted to ask you, does that even make sense?
so my experience is, commissioners and Sean, four-way stops tend to frustrate people and anger them. They almost take it upon themselves to punish back by accelerating even quicker. So, we've had other areas where we've got noise complaints from vehicles that are accelerating, and we've done counts and studies to see what the speeds are. Believe it or not, the speeds are well within the range. What was happening is the individuals that live close by, as people would stop, they'd get frustrated that they had to take that extra 15 seconds out of their day. And so to get back, they were just hammering down on the accelerator as quick as they could to get back up to speed, so they felt like they were within their schedule. It's a nice way of putting it.
Interesting.
But if there is a stop sign there, potentially we stop accidents at the intersection if it's a four-way.
It always will increase safety. Absolutely. we may see a little uptick in speeding on either side of it as a result in case somebody's late. It does increase it. I would recommend if we are gonna go that route, we do a full-blown intersection count and study to see what we're looking at, how it interacts with the general area, and we could even go as far as modeling it to see if there is a stop sign put in there. As people adjust to that new change in patterns, if there would be any other unintended consequences in other neighboring roads and intersections. If that makes sense. But yes, the high school will be roughly about a mile as a crow flies, west of here, southwest of here. So this will be one of the major ways in and out of the high school for future high schoolers.
On 35.
On 1800 and 35, yeah,
So that's just gonna back them up like it does at Fremont.
it will.
You know, Commissioner, I've been in Parker, kind of involved with Plain City. They just put the new one in right there at the Maverick. They put a four-way stop on 1975
Yeah.
Really?
and, haven't seen near the problems that we thought we were gonna see from it. I don't have any actual data. Has pushed some of the traffic from 1975 through there, but it seems to be flowing pretty well in the mornings and the afternoons. So our worry was they were gonna dip down 3600 and go 2200 north just to bypass the stop sign, and so they would be speeding on the other roads. And we're just getting our regular speeders that would normally speed anyway.
Not just inconvenience, but it also probably helps those people on that northwest bound to be able to make that turn at those other.
Yeah, so that was the traffic would back up on 4100 west for southbound as the residents were coming out trying to make it east on 1975. So Plain City, Mayor Beasley reached out. I had some discussions with him, what my opinion was on four ways, roundabouts, traffic lights. And ultimately, the cheapest and the quickest was a four-way, so they erected that, and we've had one or two rear end crashes, but as far as I know, nobody outright just blowing and major crash.
T-boned.
Yeah. We had one here two weeks ago at 1800 that was sent 3 or 4 people to the hospital.
1800 and
35.
35.
Yeah.
Are there flashers on those stop signs?
There, yeah,
Are there?
there are.
Commissioners, comments?
None for me.
I don't know what comments you're looking for.
I'm looking for, do you want to do a four-way stop sign at 35 and 18? That's what's on,
Is that what the sheriff department?
Is that a
is
recommendation?
that a recommendation?
Quite honestly, I didn't know what this meeting entailed.
That's my fault, Sergeant, and I
Not to throw Gary
apologize.
under the bus.
So,
I'm in agreement with we're dealing with noise complaints on muffler
Yeah.
and everything else as it is, with the state doing away with the safety inspection. They kind of force that to law enforcement to cover, and it's just, we're not auto body mechanics and, trying to get under the cars to see what muffler it is and if it meets certain guidelines. And so anyway, nonetheless, we either continue with the speeding complaints. I think it makes a lot of sense with the high school to put a four-way in there if the study agrees with it. There are gonna be people that speed, but it does force people to stop.
why don't you, I think commissioners, why don't you go ahead and forward with the study?
Okay.
Get that study done. What do they cost?
They're not crazy expensive, probably somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000, and I'll get some estimates from some individuals I know and see what it comes in at.
Okay, that's the first one. You got 3 to give us today, right?
I do. So the next one is
You okay
actually,
with that, the
Yep.
study?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
the next one's out on 6225 South, 2100 East in Uinta. If you guys are familiar with this area, this is the same intersection that last fall, not same intersection, same area. Yeah, Commissioner Harvey, if you wouldn't mind.
Reducing or, let's see, go to view.
Sure, or you wanna share the screen?
Yeah.
To
Right there.
yeah, right there.
Okay. Did that share it?
There we go.
There we go. Yep. Bingo.
Okay,
Okay, so this would be
now this
over,
is a different one here.
yep, kind of where Wasatch Drive intersects 6225 south in New
One
York.
moment.
While you're panning there, let me just kind of set the stage. This is a posted speed limit of 25 miles an hour. So whenever we do this study, it always calculates what we call the 85th percentile. To explain that 85th percentile is generally what's recommended as a good practice to set your operating speed at. Now, this happens
Where
to
are we
be,
exactly here?
oh,
Go to the.
west. Yep, and then shift it, keep going.
There's 62.
That's the very east edge of 6225.
Going this way. Keep going.
Perfect,
There we go, right there.
perfect.
Okay, off of Wasatch.
Yep, just off Wasatch there.
Okay, so you're talking about off of Skyline and
No,
Wasatch?
no, 6225 south of there.
Right here.
There you go. So we set it up on that straight section there.
Right here.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Okay, Boyer, I know those people. Okay,
Yeah.
2100 south is somewhere in here.
Yeah,
Okay, anyway,
so, posted speed's 25, 85th calculated to be 33 miles an hour,
okay,
which, to be honest with you, was not terribly alarming. Like anything, we went through and looked at the outliers. We did have a few crazy outliers, but this one was not near as extreme as the other location. We did a study last fall and I should have brought it with me and it was really right about the same numbers though. I should have printed that one off for comparison. But we did have a few individuals that were showing 50 miles an hour. Another 53, a 50, which I'm certainly not excusing that behavior. That's not okay. But that being said, you're always gonna have some outliers on roads, right? And like Sergeant Slater said, this doesn't tell me whether it's a motorcycle, whether it's a car, a truck. It doesn't tell me what the vehicle type and classification is. It just tells me the speed at which something passed the unit that was measuring it. So, yeah, this one, to be honest with you, it didn't really strike me as a huge blaring issue problem on this one, especially where our 85th was 33 miles an hour, especially in a residential. I wouldn't recommend doing anything higher than that. If we're still getting concerns, complaints, people bringing it up, we could always look at traffic calming measures. Like, for example, we call them bulb outs, where essentially we push curb and gutter out into the road to neck it down. What that does effectively is it makes drivers uncomfortable. And generally what happens when drivers are uncomfortable is they will reduce the speed of their vehicle. They'll see it coming as they approach, and the idea being that something like that, we would put it about the mid-block section where you've got the two roads intersecting and it would be an ideal spot for pedestrian crossing.
right in here.
Yes, sir, right in there. That's correct.
Just so you're aware, there was ended up being a fatal traffic accident,
Oh, no.
pedestrian area up in this area on the corner. Everything,
Oh, that's right, I remember that.
yeah, so as far as, it was an older gentleman who walked out into the roadway. The sun was setting, like.
It gets, on this road, you
Starting to
can't,
kind of go on.
it's right in your line, cause there's nothing to block that.
Yeah.
It's kind of coming right through here. Yeah, it's horrible.
So we parked the speed trailer out there as well. Our 85th percentile that we got, depending on the time of the day, was between 28 and 32.
So about the same as what we're reading
Pretty
there.
close then.
Does that range alert you or alarm you to areas generally, or?
I mean, now that we condone it from the sheriff's office, right, speed limits are limits, but there's this adage that people can do between 5 and 10 over and won't get pulled over, and so they push those limits.
Yeah.
I mean, as we start looking at it from a crash and a perception reaction time.
Yep.
I think the speed limit is appropriate. If there needs to be some other calming measures. I'm not as familiar with the MUTCD probably as like you are, but, I mean, to solve that problem, I mean, even putting the, you know, a crossing down here, I just don't know that you're gonna get that. You could,
Yeah.
but, you know, it may not help or it may not hurt to could install something like that, and it may have prevented what happened, but.
Well, to increase from 25 to 33 doesn't take much, especially in that particular span of distance there. It doesn't take much at all to get your vehicle up quicker speed in that area, so.
So Mr. Benyon, who sent the email, said he acknowledged that the sheriff's office increased patrols and brought the radar trailer out. I'm just grateful for that, but he said those are temporary things. So they're wanting to know if the county is willing to do something more permanent. They're saying stop signs, speed bumps, or at the very least a crosswalk or two for kids going to and from school. And
I could actually see that if the crosswalk and the idea on that, which would be over in this area, cause the school's right there.
Intersection.
Mm-hmm. And maybe a crosswalk right in there or something.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of people, so they could go and hit the crosswalk right here. But then they're
No.
going up there, hit the, I don't know which way that is.
We pull it down just a little bit, cause 2175 also is in the school, right? Both these roads.
Mr. Harvey, would you pull that screen? there?
Here, Gary,
Yes, sir. Got it.
here.
Thank
Sorry,
you. Yeah, it doesn't like it unless you're on a pad, does it? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so you'd have to, I don't know if you do both or one. Problem we see with the crossings is that kids will.
Still-
Human nature, you cross with the path of least resistance.
yeah,
And it's like with your cows, right?
yeah.
Yep, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't disagree that there probably could be some calming measures, but we just weren't seeing the results of the people that we were told was happening, and some of the factors is the cars coming around the corners. A vehicle will look like it's going faster in a curve than it does in a straightaway. And so the perception, human perception from some of the residents, I had one of our deputies stand out with the radar gun. How fast is that car going? Oh, he's gotta be doing 40, 27.
Yep.
So we've done some out with the citizens up in that area. Chief Sullivan lives up there from the fire district.
He does.
We talked to him because his perception was much higher than what the traffic was actually doing. And granted, we're standing out in uniforms and there was 3 sheriff cars there. So I mean, people were
They might pay attention.
paying attention maybe, but anyway.
Well, to back that up though, Sergeant, we get complaints about speeding a lot, which is why my department purchased these counters, because literally you just can't see them. 9 times out of 10, when I do the monitoring and I go back to the individual that raised the issue up and I sit down with them, I'll print this report off, I'll give them a copy of the report. And they're just kind of like, wow, they're oftentimes in shock saying, well, it sure feels like they're going faster than that, but I mean, the counter's it's not gonna make numbers up or distort them, so. So yeah, sometimes it becomes an educational type tool and it helps people understand maybe it's oftentimes not to the extreme that they think it is, but like Sergeant Slater said, I'm certainly not gonna condone going faster than what the speed limit is. It's there posted for a reason. It's a safe operating speed. So. And if I can give you a feel for what those bulb outs look like, it's basically you just push them out in.
They're like they have them over in South Ogden.
Yep, same idea. It does have unintended effects of having to add extra drainage features in and
Snow
whatnot.
removal issues.
Snow removal, yeah, because the plow drivers then,
Right.
Bam.
but,
Joe doesn't like it.
but, you know, how do you put a price and a tag on a human life if it does have the
Oh,
effect of
agreed.
helping that, right? I
We
certainly
need to
don't
do-
wanna minimize that.
You probably at least do a crosswalk over there.
Would you like me to?
I'd probably have you put that crosswalk on the east side.
If I could make a suggestion on that, Commissioner, why don't I reach out to the school district? Have them help me identify what their safe routes to school path is,
That's perfect.
and then we look at where the most logical spot is.
Yeah.
And we could get with Joe and just stripe a crosswalk. Do you want the full bulb out, curb and gutter push outs or not?
You guys have an opinion? Commissioner Bolos,
I
Commissioner
don't.
Faur?
I'd get suggestions from the school district where they thought it was needed or not.
And we could always start with the crosswalk, right?
I think you start with the crosswalk.
And then sign
see
it,
if that
school
helps.
crossing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then take it up from there if we wanna
Yeah.
go with the bulb out from
Yeah.
there forward. So,
Let's see how that works first.
Gary, can I give you these and would you mind responding to both?
more happy to.
Thank you. That was the next thing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Would you have two complaints, Sean?
Yeah, one out on 1800, 3500 and one here.
Okay.
And then, while we have you commissioners and while Sergeant Slater's here, if I could, Commissioner, I have the mouse. I
Now,
forgot.
what would you like me to do?
Just sit and watch, just sit and watch.
Sit and watch.
So we have this part of the valley up here in Eden, commissioners, where it's a weird area. You're familiar with this. This is Old Town Eden. The main path of the road around the valley makes a 90-degree bend there, and then also another 90-degree bend in this area. Historically, there's been issues, we'll call it, with people who maybe aren't familiar with this area, driving too fast, they slide off the road, or maybe it's a snowy day and they're going faster than they should be for driving conditions. Or it could be anything, right? I don't wanna paint that that's just the two issues at play here. It could be a whole lot of different reasons. However, if you would like, since I'm going to be getting a traffic study out there on 3500 West, I could also lump in and have them do a study in this area. One of the things we kind of toyed around with is converting these to three-way stops.
Which one?
Both of them. So this one would be a three-way stop. Currently, the south leg is stop controlled, but the other two legs are not. They're free movement. This particular intersection is kind of somewhat similar. The east leg of the three-way intersection is stop controlled, however, the other two legs are not. And so, we might run into the situation where we're irritating people by adding two more stop signs. We could do the study. We certainly don't have to do what the study suggests if you guys feel strongly otherwise, or we could just not even do a study, and if you feel there's not an issue, we could leave it alone.
The other thing is, I believe the speed limit here on 5500 is 40 right now.
Yeah.
And we've talked about just bringing that down.
Yeah.
Because it goes right past the park, blacksmith shop.
Is that a 40?
Yeah, it is
Yeah, it's
40, and
posted.
it's right in between those two
Mhm.
corners.
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense for that to be 40.
So it turns 40 right here prior to the elementary.
Yeah.
Just
To
before
the
the,
east,
just before the elementary.
Right.
Going east,
or sorry, west.
west,
Going
right?
west.
Coming from the east.
I think it's 45 or 50
It's 50 once on 1900 northeast.
Right.
going east. Well, I don't see any reason for a sign up or for a three-way stop. That's just gonna aggravate a lot of the traffic you get.
Okay.
But I'd be in favor of
Reducing the speed.
looking at the speed reduction,
Would
yeah.
you like to look at the speed reduction
That's
and,
what I think you're gonna have a lot more results with speed reduction than you are
okay,
with the stop sign.
do you want me to have any analysis on the stop signs at all on either intersection or not?
I mean, I don't know, it probably wouldn't hurt, but for the three-way there, I think you cause more problems. You're gonna have people.
Probably on both of those three ways.
Yeah, you're gonna have people just ignore those and blow right through them, and now you got bigger problems. I mean, you're not, for the idiots that show up there that drive too fast, they just moved in from California 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They're gonna drive into somebody's yard and then the insurance will pay for it, and
Mhm.
maybe next time they'll slow down. It's not gonna make any difference where there are stop signs there,
Yeah,
but if they pay attention to the speed, it might.
That's who I'm getting calls from, mainly the people who live right here. People are going off into these yards.
Yeah.
Their fences and
Yeah.
causing trouble, so.
Right here,
No, that's-
35 and 35, right there, as you hit those corners, slow it right down. Or slow it down just so, before they hit the corners, it's 35.
Do you want it 35? Do you want it 25 going past the park? I mean, what are your, I guess both, that's another question. What are your thoughts?
The other thing to consider is the day may come when this particular intersection right here in front of the general store might warrant a
Four-way stop.
It could,
four-way stop. Currently, it's two-way. I do know there's some pine trees on the southwest quadrant there that do add a, site issue to that. I don't know, I could look at that and we could call that a middle ground. I'm certainly not trying to create more work, commissioners, just different things to consider here is all. So,
I think you look at what the results are with the speed reduction.
okay,
The only thing that makes sense there is to go to a four-way at that site, because you're gonna slow them down.
Yeah.
Before they hit the curb.
Before they go into the curb, they're gonna slow down a little bit there.
That's true.
And then alleviate you putting stop signs in those other two.
Oh, yeah.
sure. That was the other thought behind looking at that as a potential four-way candidate, but.
To me, the stop signs, if they make any sense, it's a four-way at that intersection.
Okay.
Leave the others alone for now.
Do you want me to look at that then as a four-way option?
I think that'd probably not be bad, but depending on the cost.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but I almost would rather see what happens with the reduction in speed.
Yeah,
Okay,
First.
I'm not sure you have to study it right now. I think we'll know. Let's.
Yeah.
I think I agree with Commissioner Bolos. Let's look at what those speeds do
okay,
and then.
I'd like to see a speed reduction, then the step two would be the four-way.
okay.
My only question is the same study going to look at speed reduction and
Yeah,
four-way stop? And are we going to get more of a benefit to set them both together than two separate studies?
It's a great question. So the initial study would be just to look at the speed. We could model what that might do to add the extra four-way. We're kind of almost taking guesses as what people's traffic pattern changes might predict to be, right?
And I'm really just looking at cost of
Sure.
Yeah.
studies, so.
Yeah.
But it is a good idea to do an official study to reduce that speed.
Then we
It
can
just
point
cover-
back to the study and
Yep.
talk to it.
It covers yourself. legally.
I wanna do a study only because of the motions up there. I wanna point to the study and not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Sandra?
No, I'd like to I was actually gonna get with you on that, but as far as those electronic signs, not that we need every road in the county to have one, but we're finding a lot of success. There are, like you say, we'll say 50% of the people, according to the data from our trailers, they are slowing down.
Yeah.
Because they do, that sign flashes at them,
Uh-huh,
so they're expensive.
that's the
Right.
challenge,
They're
right?
$4 or $5 aren't they?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I'd like to get to where we are getting more traffic, we are getting people that are up here. We can definitely park the speed trailers when the signs do change, but one thing is, I think it's Summit, don't they own the one on 1900? Or do they gift it to the county?
Well, I think the ones that were bought were gifted to us
Okay.
or purchased partially, but yes.
Yeah, so anyway.
by the school.
Yeah,
Well, we just replaced the one on the west side at our cost.
we did.
Because somebody knocked it down.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
I would, if we're gonna change it, like I said, we can park a speed trailer up there, but those signs, I think are beneficial.
I like the idea of doing that, the sign with the speed underneath it, especially if we're gonna speed. Check it down, then you can always, just with the sign, you can always turn it down and the sign down too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like if we go to 35 or 30 or whatever that is,
Okay,
it just takes them slower through that piece.
okay,
I like that idea,
So-
but I think of traffic study first, because I don't wanna just do it and then. Just to do
Doing
it,
the coordination, maybe we get a couple that we have just on hand that we can help throw up
Mhm.
in some of the problem areas. Right now I've got 12 people in line.
Oh, wow.
For speed trailers, so
wow.
this kind of like help, maybe we do leave it permanent or,
Mhm.
but you have a couple that cause I'm pretty sure we can put them on a post and then
Yep.
remove the post and.
Yeah, so you're
work with
suggesting
Joe on that, but.
like a mobile version?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see us be able to get, maybe we budget for 4 or 5 a year or
Yeah,
something,
I
right?
agree.
And then as we move forward, but like I can see 800 South benefiting from a permanent one.
Mhm.
Yep.
West Haven has one further east for the westbound.
They do.
But if we put one for eastbound traffic, or just, I think there's some benefit to having them. I don't think, they are costly. And we can pull data from them. I work, in conjunction with Marion, Slaterville and Far West and Plain City, and give us your data, what you have on those, and, cause we'll get the complaints in those contract cities, and it's good to pull the sign data, and those things are always there, and you can tell the people that ignore them and the people that pay attention.
That's right.
Absolutely. But the 4 traffic guys, the traffic unit that I oversee, the 4 guys to date have made 1,100 traffic stops.
Wow.
So 532 of those are citations and 467 warnings. So we're starting to see a lot of repeat offenders. So
Okay,
that's, when I say it's our new epidemic,
afford
it's, yeah, right. It's just, it's crazy,
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Interesting mentality. Okay, so with your permission, direction, we'll get a stop sign study out there at 35th and 1800, and then we'll do a speed study up here in this location.
And Weber County School District in there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then we can watch 3,500, well, more closely as well.
Perfect. That'd be great.
So. Perfect. You can send me that electronic.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Get it on
Thank
home,
you.
too.
Pretty soon, satellites are gonna be able to control the speed in the cars, and you're not gonna be able to go more than so fast about. I mean, you'll still have the old hot rods out there, but the new cars will be equipped with safety features that. So,
Well, and some of the contributing factors to some of these crashes, again, is that silly safety inspection. Nobody liked paying the extra 25 or 30 bucks, but we're in year 5 now where that's been away, and a lot of our crashes, I don't have any statistical numbers right off the get-go, but tires are a contributing factor.
Tires are? I believe it.
Nobody bought new tires until they were told, well, you can't register your car.
Right. You're right.
Boy, that's the truth, isn't it?
boy,
They're not cheap.
oh, they gone way up.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, so that,
story.
window tint, yeah, it's,
Interesting.
Okay,
anyway.
hit okay on that, Gary. Thank you. Okay, here we go.
Okay. I will get out of your guys' way.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
On our way.
Thanks,
Thank
Gary.
you. Appreciate it. Thanks for Kylie. very
Thanks,
much.
Kylie. Good seeing you again.
Sergeant Slater, as we've been. Okay, our next discussion, commissioners, is a discussion regarding the West Windmill Estates subdivision and the rezone development agreement. We'll wait for those gentlemen to come in.
Good to see you. How we doing, gentlemen?
How are you guys? Good, thank you. Great.
Pre-warm this chair, that's nice.
Cool, babe. Nice, got them all cut up there. We had a boy,
Wow.
Rick.
Look at that.
So.
We're gonna be quick.
We're
Yeah,
always talking
Sure you are.
about. I'm
always quick. Bill's always quick.
this again, commissioners, it's a discussion regarding the West Windmill Estates subdivision rezone development and agreement. We've got listed on here William Cobabe, Sean Wilkinson, Charlie Ewert, Rick Grover, and Liam Keough. Thank you very much. You two gentlemen are?
We're from the Holland Group,
Your names?
Phil Holland.
Phil Holland,
Shrek Loveridge.
Trek Loveridge. Great. We're being recorded and it's just good to have that for our minutes. Appreciate that. Mr. Cobabe, you're listed first and you've had a handout. Thank you very much. Go ahead. Can you give us the rough bearings where this subdivision
That's
is?
what the first page is here, sir.
Great, thank you.
If you'll notice that the site outlined in blue, it's about 25 acres. They're looking to do a development on there of a subdivision that will need a zone change from the current zoning of A2/A1 over to an RE15/R3 zoning district. In connection with that, we provided a copy of a development agreement that you have in your packet as well. This development agreement addresses a number of things that we feel are in the best interest of the county to make sure that both the property owners' rights and interest in the property are protected, as well as the county's interest in making sure we have a quality development on the other side of the project. In addition to the normal things that you would see with regard to streets and infrastructure that we outline in all of our development agreements, this one has some architectural standards that they will be required to meet, especially with the multifamily units that are closer to 4700 West. And then the addressing the trails network that will be in and throughout this development and connect with other trails and roads in the area. We've met with UDOT a couple of times on this project, as well as the project that they're working on just up the street and across the street a little ways, which will come at a future time. But this one governs this 25-acre parcel, and we wanted to make sure you had this in front of you before we schedule this for a public hearing. If you're amenable, we'd like to schedule that public hearing for next week, next Tuesday. If you guys are, if that's something that you think is ready and that's a good thing to have on that agenda.
Before we go to Commissioner Frohr, whose portfolio this is in, RE 15 or lots are approximately 15,000 square feet. R3 are not less than 14,000 square feet. Is that correct?
No, R3 is the multifamily.
That's the higher density.
It's the higher, so you could have lots as small as, I believe, it's 7,000 square feet, 6,000 square feet if it's a single family. I'll have to look at the code again, but I think those are the sizes.
Does, and then what's the multifamily?
Multifamily is up closer to the 4,700. Is that what you're asking, where on the map it is?
And does our existing general plan allow for this, Charlie?
It does. In fact, that was a special request by the planning commission. The original proposal that we had brought in, it just showed single family. And here, planning commission said, you know what? If we're gonna put a village here, we're gonna need some, a little bit higher density. And our street regulating plan for the form-based zone out here shows multifamily, shows a little bit of commercial up here too. And so the other thing that we talked to the developer about is doing post and beam first floors that could be converted to commercial at some point in the future if you ever choose to give the form-based zone or a commercial zone to them for those street facing townhomes.
Ground level.
Yep.
So, and that would be usually what, a 12-foot ceiling on those?
I think our code calls for 15.
12 to 15, okay.
So other than that, I mean, planning commission, I was surprised, said, here, put some townhomes there and didn't really ask for anything in return because I think they felt like it was going to support the future of that village center.
So your multifamily townhomes.
Yep.
In the front and then, okay. Commissioner Frohr, your portfolio, any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have we looked at this before? That location looks
Yeah, we've looked at this.
somewhat
before.
familiar. Different ownership or what?
Same ownership. This is, we've just finally got the development agreement ready and wanted to bring that in front of you too before we schedule it for a public hearing.
Okay. And what are you showing as far as egress? You just have one
Right now they have. one.
intersection off of there?
Yeah, and in the development agreement, it says that they have to work it out with UDOT to find a secondary access and egress pending an additional development either to the north or south, which they've provided interconnections for, but that still doesn't provide that secondary egress.
So how many units we talking here without that egress?
Before we trigger the egress, I think you can get a maximum of 15.
Okay,
And then after that, they'll have to just pause and wait till either they get that secondary egress or
okay.
30, so they could get
30, sorry.
No, you're good. It's 15 if it's a dead end road, 30 if it's intended to extend back to the street frontage, which my understanding was the egress was gonna be on the south side of the property here, but it could be anything. It could come through these other lots. It could be up on the north side.
So a maximum of 30 units
Correct.
before they have to have another egress. Is
Correct.
that right?
Mhm.
Okay, cause I thought it was more like 15. That's a dead end, but
15 for a dead end, 30 if they
So
are
how
gonna
does-
be extending.
refresh my memory on the code when we say, so there's no provisions here for future dedication of roads. So how do, what you're telling me is they could have 30 units there for the rest of our,
Yeah,
in perpetuity.
That's why we put a max at 30. Anything over 30 would require a secondary egress, whether it be an emergency egress or another street. They are showing 3 or 4 different stubs into adjacent properties. We're pretty confident in time that you'll get those connections. We just can't tell you exactly when that's gonna be, and that's why we limit it to 30 until another connection is made.
Okay, well, that concerns me a little bit. 30's quite a bit to put out onto one road, but
especially that road.
especially that road. So one last question, if I might, Mr. Chair. So have you got your water culinary and irrigation,
Secondary?
secondary,
Yeah,
approved, will serve.
we've got it will served, yes, in both cases.
Who you working with?
Hooper Irrigation,
Okay,
For both?
Taylor West Weaver would be.
so Taylor West Weaver's your culinary.
yep,
They giving
Secondary
you
is
will
Hooper.
serve,
yeah,
and Hooper's giving you will serve?
right.
Have they got capacity out there now off of 47th? I know they're to the east of here.
They do on 900, so these guys will have to extend to 900.
Okay, all right. Well, I think they probably already told you. I think, we want more than just a will serve before any permits or go-aheads in a give. We want to see, firm contracts that'll actually happen. We've been through that before and
Yeah.
it doesn't turn real pretty.
It doesn't, it won't. You won't get a vote here unless you've
Yeah.
got the rest of that there.
So I would say if you make sure if you're gonna complete one thing before you spend much more money, you've got a firm commitment, not a will serve, a firm commitment, a contract, interlocal agreement, whatever you need for both your culinary and your secondary. Whatever that takes. Because if not, you're just gonna cause us all a bunch of heartache down the road.
Yeah.
Probably more you than us, but
Yeah, makes sense.
It's not my money.
yeah.
They're gonna be putting in a lift station as well.
Right,
And I believe we've got a pioneering agreement clause in the development agreement.
Right.
So that would be, well, you don't pay that back.
yeah.
Great.
All right, that's all I've got. I just wanted to make sure we got our Ts crossed and Is dotted, so we don't have this meeting a year from now going, we can't get our water, and we get a building permit.
And we got people ready to move
We
in.
got people ready.
Yeah.
They're suing us. Okay, that doesn't work anymore.
Commissioner Bolos?
I don't have any other questions.
So-
If this complies with the general plan, I'm fine with it.
If it complies with the general plan, I'm fine with it too.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the recommendation from the planning commission?
Voted to recommend approval.
Unanimous?
I believe so, if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't remember anyone.
Okay, but it was a recommendation for approval for this subdivision based on what they've shown.
Yeah.
Great. Get it on.
All right, we'll plan for next week if that's enough.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Do you have any comments that you wanted to say or just wanted to watch the process?
Watch the process.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Bill, I miss your bow tie. Is there a problem here?
I didn't almost recognize you.
This is actually my favorite tie. This is a Frank Lloyd Wright tie. My
course
dad
it
got
is.
for me like 20 years ago,
Ah.
and I love it, but, so I have to pull it out every once in a
Well,
while.
Frank Lloyd
All
Wright.
right, we'll let you have that versus a bow.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay, commissioners, let's continue to move forward. This next item, one moment.
Well, we're almost on schedule.
No, not yet, Cal. You can come in if you want to.
We're coming in.
You're not up yet. Yeah.
He is.
I think we're part of this,
Yes.
Building permits.
building permit.
Now, he's on the building.
Okay.
permit.
I see. Oh, you are. There
He's
you
there.
go.
Unlikely players, right?
Yeah, not. Oh, here we go. How's it going? Good. How are you? Good.
How are you?
Good afternoon.
Stanley?
Good afternoon, commissioners. Hey, Stan.
are you?
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna ask, do
What's
you wanna
that?
hear a 3-minute story about Commissioner Ford?
Always.
Okay, that's what I thought,
Which,
Sorry.
As people are coming in,
We're
I'm gonna
walking
tell
on,
them.
we're walking in on the,
Okay,
maybe on, go ahead.
so years ago, and I had no idea this was him, right? So I didn't know, but the other day we got into a conversation and they were
High school hockey.
high school hockey, and I said, you know what, you guys are talking about these kids that were really good. I go, I know a kid. Oh, thank you, I got a duck.
Down to here, my hair's out to here. Somebody took a picture.
I know a kid back in the day that was better than everybody, okay? Still, I don't know anything. And they go, where at? And I said, well, he played at Fremont. And, my dad was the principal, and so I would go with him and chase him and go watch all these hockey games. And this kid, I guess, happened to be your kid,
yeah,
so.
actually had two of them.
Yeah, but I think it was the older one, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. Depends on, yeah, if you got in a couple of fights, it was my oldest.
He was just ahead of the rest.
Yeah,
He really was.
There you go.
Incredible.
yeah, he actually played, well, both of them played college hockey.
Did they?
Yeah. So hometown boys can't do it
They
here.
can. Out our way, we only played hooky, not hockey, but we forgot
Well, it
that.
started with an A.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we want to get into business?
Yeah, okay,
All right, everyone.
hold on,
thank you.
Stan, easy. Little too much grape nuts this morning, just, it's just.
That's my daily.
It's our item number 5 on our commission agenda is a discussion regarding building permit applications and review. Stan, you're listed first. If all those around the table would identify yourself, just for the record. Gary, we'll start with you.
Gary Myers, Weaver County Engineer.
Sean Wilkinson, Weaver County Community Development Director.
Charlie Ewert.
John Lewis.
Greg Robert.
I'm Tucker.
Stan Burnish.
I'm David Reed.
Scott Braden with the Health Department.
Brian Cowan, Executive Director of Northern Health.
William Q.
Jessica Clark.
Sharon Bolos.
Gage Froer and Jim Harvey, and we also have Stephanie Russell and
Here's Stephanie. I thought I saw her come in.
and our ambassador, another ambassador back here, Eric Householder. Great. Thanks for joining us here today. Go ahead, Stan, you're listed first.
I appreciate you. Okay, so the reason I basically called this workshop together is to get all the applicable reviewing agencies and the commissioners together to talk about what's not clear in our policies or our municipal code currently. State code requires certain things when it comes to the review and issuing of a building permit. It doesn't speak to when that should occur. It speaks to a timeline once it is accepted as a complete application, but it doesn't speak to when the municipality should accept that review. Current policy has basically been that we do not accept a land use or building permit application in until we have a lot of record with the applicable services to that, whether it be an approved well and septic or being served by culinary water service and sewer. And for subdivisions, older subdivisions, we basically are looking at them saying that, okay, we have to have all infrastructure in place, be a legal subdivision with everything ready to go. Newer subdivisions, what I find in the code is that it's saying that they have up to 2 years to complete their infrastructure, with the exception of a few minor things such as sidewalks, curb and gutter, incidental items of that nature. But utilities is part of that item that's required to be completed prior to the issue of land use or building codes. That is in our current ordinance. So my question to all of the divisions that are involved here is, what are the potential problems or benefits to accepting in a plan review, not issuing a building permit, but accepting a project in for review and then staging that review off to the side and waiting for those improvements to be completed before moving forward. We did something similar to this when we went into the water moratorium, 2 years ago? Where we developed a document with the legal that helped us with that. And it was a document which I have with me, which basically allowed the applicant to apply for the building permit without any guarantee of ever getting the building permit, pay the fees up front for that for reviews, but not paying the impact fees or actual building permit fees. And then they had to record that document against the property. So basically the applicant took the risk. But we're concerned that by taking in, at what stage should we either wait like we're currently doing until everything is done and ready to go to keep it more simplified and more of an even workflow? Or do we want to accept and do either something in the ordinance or just do a policy that says we can take this, but at what timeline? In this particular case, you know, this was started by an application that came in through a developer, or actually, you know, in a new development. And it's so far away from the actual timeline that this development is going to be ready for a building permit and have this infrastructure in place. We either need to get right to the end of this and just keep it the way it is, or narrow that timeline down to maybe X amount of days, weeks, months, whatever it is, as opposed to having it so open-ended. Because to me, it doesn't make sense at this point for this particular application to come in now. But I'm looking at this countywide and not just for one application or one subdivision. I'm looking at this as a countywide decision.
Thank you. Mr. Grover, comments from you?
Typically, we require the utilities to be in per ordinance for new subdivisions. We go contrary to that, we probably need to amend our ordinance. Older ones, it's not as clear. Does provide a bit of a risk, if we do this. But I can see positives too, to help the developer along too. Clear window. Building season is short. And to help them, you know, if we can, you know, if there's a way, make it a win-win for both, but right now it does pose a bigger risk out west, because we have a longer building season, but I can see some benefits up in the Ogden Valley, but there's still risk up there as well, when we do this.
Mr. Wilkinson?
We have, like Stan mentioned, we have done this for a moratorium that was in place up in the Ogden Valley. We didn't know exactly when that moratorium would end. The only risk I see here, if the applicant is willing to sign a document that relieves the county of all liability for any reviews or any decisions or anything like that, and it's very clear that there is no building permit that will be issued, I don't see a lot of risk to the county, except that code cycles may change, ordinances may change, health department may change some rules, or the state may pass new rules, the fire district might have new rules come into play, and that review then has to change again, even if it's been reviewed fully one time, if the development is not ready to go within a certain period of time, and we can't issue that building permit until things have changed again, that gets a little bit confusing. Potentially, there's another full review process that has to be done, new fees paid. So this does get the applicant closer to their goal of building. It really is just that timing issue, if anything is going to change. So that's the way I see it. I don't see an inherent risk to the county in doing this otherwise.
Mr. Myers and then Mr. Cowan.
We're very much similar, same boat as planning. We're mostly looking for assurance that they've worked out their connections for water, sewer service, of what they need, whatever their situation is. Just it's always a challenge, right? And so we'd like to make sure that topic is addressed. Once we've got beyond that, we're pretty flexible. We've worked with them. I'm looking for Tucker's approval here, but we've worked with them. We've done building permits for subdivisions that did not have the road quite paved just yet, right? And so yeah, we're pretty flexible on our
I
end.
think our biggest thing is we have, follows stormwater pollution prevention plan and stuff.
It's true.
And I mean, we don't typically accept the building permit or approve the building permit until we have all that accepted in, meaning have all the permits that need from EPA and stuff like that. In order for us to approve, we want that up front. Well, the permit with the state and with the EPA is only good for 1 year. So if this goes longer than a year, they have to go back and pay another $150, whatever it is, to the EPA website. So that's really my only concern as far as engineering, just because we didn't approve until that's in.
If they charge into that too soon, right? I mean, sometimes there's extra effort included in protecting the inlets from the material for migrating.
And I don't want to say, oh, you should have put this application in this day. I know I submitted this day, but I want this, there could be some things there. Mr. Cowan, and then I'm gonna go Mr. Reed and then Mr. Keel.
Well, listening to this discussion, I'm kind of picking out that maybe one of the delays that could happen in this process is the health department's review process for on-site wastewater systems. It can take a year for us to determine if a property is suitable for a septic or what type of system can go on the property. And that your time frame is listed out in State Administrative Rule, 317.4, and essentially what it says, anytime we have shallow groundwater or groundwater that may be within 24 inches of a drain field for a septic system, we have to monitor that water table for a year-long period to determine where it peaks. So I can see, you know, the potential for people to have a piece of property they want to develop and be anxious to do that, but one of the first things they run into, if we haven't done that review yet, is already a year-long wait when we measure groundwater.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
The only concern, so there's just a couple things, one of it we could yield, but, by code in the IBC and the IFC is a 6-month, it expires, like, so we'll do a review, and if they don't move on that review, it expires after 6 months. We can allow an extension. It's not a big deal, just something to note. The only other thing would be is, a durable surface so that we can respond if they're doing construction. And what I worry about more than a fire, to be honest, because a fire on a construction site is probably not gonna be a life safety issue, but someone getting hurt, someone falling, you know, piercing a side or something, we need to be able to have access for medical. If they build without a fire hydrant and their place burns down, I don't know, that might be something maybe we work with you on legal too, to say, because normally we've always required them to have their hydrants installed prior to going vertical, just in case there is a fire. The only thing that would be a concern would be the WUI area, the wildland urban interface. We wouldn't want a construction site to burn down Nordic Valley or something, so maybe a little case by case, but for the most part, I wouldn't personally care. The fire code doesn't care if they started before all of the infrastructure was in, but.
Keep in mind, this is only about plan review. So it's not zero construction with this particular policy.
Thank you.
No guarantee.
Not having any construction.
Thank you. Liam?
If we have it so written and signed that they take all the risk, as we've done before, I understand this would be having them sign a document for this is, we made this as an exception, and now we'd be making it the norm. And if all the stakeholders involved are okay with that and keeping track of that and making sure that the document's signed, from my end, it's okay.
I'm gonna come back to you, Mr. Wilkinson. Does that create a problem with workflow or with process?
I don't think so, because I don't think we will have a lot of these necessarily. And that signed document will be with the review, it'll be with building inspection. That's really the only entity that will get their hands on this. We're not issuing land use permits. We're not issuing any other permits. So this is really kept in-house in building inspection, and they do not start that review until they have that signed document.
Agree with that.
Yeah, that's true. You know, Mr. Braden and then, Mr. Ewart, if you, either one of you want to make a comment that hadn't been. No here?
Just to make sure we're clear, the ordinance right now says we cannot issue a permit. I think what Stan's talking about right now is, at what point do we accept applications for permits? So in other places I've worked, we said we will not accept applications for permits until certain things in the subdivision is done. And in other places I've worked, we learned that lesson the hard way. Whole subdivisions with separate owners, developers gone. I mean, we're thinking about the 2008 crash. And now we've got a lot of pressure from a lot of different owners to get things rolling. And fortunately, in that case, in that particular jurisdiction, they said, no, owners, you bought a problem, fix the problem. But it takes a lot of political willpower to do that.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Lewis and Mr. Householder, you're here representing Brewer. Would either one of you like to comment?
I guess I look at this from a end user's point of view. And, you know, I think I have a lot of customers who would like to get started. You know, I think 6 months is the window we're looking for. If it's more than that, then everybody's review should, you know, expire anyway. But I don't see the risk in having to sign whatever he wants to sign, saying, you know, of the total fees included impact, half of that is the review if we screw this up. So, you know, the end user is more than willing to put up a bunch of money, have you know, preferably this will save us a month or two on our construction if we get our ducks in a row. And if we don't, then we lose the money and you guys keep it. We're fine with that, and have us sign whatever you want. says, you know, we understand we're not going to get a permit, we understand, you know, maybe some of that's even nicer to have in writing. You know, if the
I would
developer
think.
keels over, all of a sudden it's, look, you agreed to do this. And, you know, I've got one particular guy who really wants to get his stuff started. And if we wait, you know, the 3 months till the sewer is done, great, but then, you know, then it's another month and a half for him to get through there. Now we're in September, October, and up there it makes a difference. So why not let him take on the risk as long as you get the letter you need, Sean, that says, I'm taking all the risk, and if we screw it up, it's our problem, not yours.
And I think this only applies in an approved subdivision, so we're not talking about allowing subdivisions to be submitted for that don't have everything they need. This is when an approved subdivision is in place, it may just not have the infrastructure installed yet.
Well, and maybe it needs to be with the improvements either installed with a drivable surface, with a defensible surface with fire hydrants on. You know, at least that minimum, and if it's not completely done, it's bonded. You know, that's different than a pipe dream that may not happen and disappears in 2008.
Sure. Yeah, again, I don't see a lot of risk to the county because it's so limited in scope. We're reviewing some building plans. That's it. We will not issue building permits until the ordinance is met.
And even that could be strengthened on paper. Eric, do you have any comments on that?
Nothing to add.
Okay, Commissioner Farrar, this is in your portfolio. Looking for comments,
I'm happy to give you one.
please.
So I think Sean brought up exactly where we need to concentrate. This is not on a subdivision, a proposed subdivision. Somebody comes in 50 acres, said, this is my subdivision. They have well, it's not even legal to sell a lot. So until you have an approved subdivision, you're against code state violation if you sell it. So you can't do that. So this has to do with an approved subdivision on somebody that's purchased a lot, what they're looking for. And I agree with John. In fact, I think I received a letter from one of your people. That's probably what started this conversation.
Probably.
Is he just wanted to get a jump ahead on the review. And I think, as long as, and it's a little different down here, I agree, but it's the same element. If somebody wants to take the risk, they sign their life away. Again, so how many instances have we had of this, Dan? You act like it's a huge deal. I don't recall we've had this conversation where you've got 30 people lined up for plan review.
During the moratorium, we had quite a few.
No, I'm talking like in the last 12 months.
Nothing.
All right, so we really haven't, this is not like we've got 50 people waiting to spring this on us, right?
Right, so what I'm trying to say is what we're looking for is uniformity for every anybody in the county who's a
Right.
landowner is gonna apply, this is gonna apply to them as well.
The valley and out west, right?
Yes, and whether it's a single lot owner with a lot of record
Sure.
or a 100 lot subdivision.
But what I'm saying is, for them to get, if they're ready to put the money up, they understand they don't get a building permit. They don't go to step B without step A. What's wrong with them? I mean, I don't think that we're looking, especially now with what we have been coming from the state, that we're overworked down there, that, you know, rather than taking 6 weeks after this goes through, a month and a half, why not get started? Why not give them the benefit of the opportunity? I think it's more user-friendly to do that.
The other thing is, I feel bad for Stan, like this time of year is when everybody shows up in the next 4 weeks, they're all gonna show up and start. And it sure would have been nice if we could have given it to them 2 months ago, when times are slower, and just fill in the holes and spread out the workload, because it's all cyclical now.
No, I mean, that's the other part that I would like to see is, you know, we're sitting around here, you know, December, January part of the time, you know, without any plans, and all of a sudden they hit. Why not say, let's take these and work them into the schedule with this agreement? So I think it's more government friendly, it's more user friendly. It gives them the opportunity. They're taking the risk. I agree with, and as long as we understand, this is not about subdivision approval. This is about getting a building permit on an approved lot. We're waiting possibly for that lot to have all the utilities, but I think we're not looking after our private individuals if we, stick to that. That to me makes no sense. The current policy makes no sense to wait for that.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, it still.
Commissioner Bolos.
Just to clarify, when you say building permit, it's the building permit review, right? The building permit would not be issued
That's correct.
That's,
any
just the
sooner,
review.
so, yeah.
this is plan, yeah,
Plan review.
Strictly plan.
this is
review.
plan review.
And
So-
that's not just building, that's all entities.
And how long, so tell us how long it's been taking to do a plan review on average,
We're doing 8 to 10 days.
okay?
State
Other
code
entities,
within 2 weeks, correct?
14 business days
Well, have
on,
you met that?
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we're exceeding that.
You're saying that, good,
Yes.
good.
And
You
we're,
jumped right on
and
that.
we do have building, by the way, we do have building permit activity for both single family, accessories, additions. We're not sitting around with nothing to do right now. It's a little bit different.
You've given great-
demographic right now.
You've been giving good service through the winter. Thank you. I know that personally. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, Commissioner Bolos?
No.
Charlie, go ahead.
Just an observation, I think the risk runs in new staffing, it's a management challenge. And so Stan will need to stay on top of whoever's reporting to him, because it's a really quick flick of the signature when to issue a building permit, not realizing you're not supposed to. And so maybe there's a way that we can build into these contracts, these go at your own risk contracts, say any approval by the county, you know, is null and void if this contract has been entered into without being released or something like that.
Well, I'd like to stand and make
There's
sure
no
you're patrol, we
mistakes.
should be on top of that.
Can't this be put in a workflow such situation of such, though, if this is signed, then there's something that wouldn't allow them to do that until you have another double check on this?
It can be, and I think if we're looking at one staff, two staff, you know, replacement, that's something different than a whole department being turned over, which can happen.
So what I'm hearing right now, just to further the discussion, is that we have a consensus of this commission to go ahead and to move forward with this. But to work that out, Stan, and if you need some extra help in getting that in the workflow, talk with Quinn or however that's gonna go there to get that done.
So,
Make
Commissioner,
sure.
can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Is this something that you would like an official policy or even for us to add this to our land use code?
I don't know that
Or
would
is
hurt.
this-
That's in your deal.
I don't think we need it in the code, I think we just have it in the policy.
Okay.
Okay, it's currently basically just silent. It's like,
Okay.
whatever we
You know, I
want to
think
do.
we just have it in the policy, again, we can take a look at it, I don't expect you're gonna have, you know, you're not gonna be overworked with the number of requests we have. So, for those that need this, it's a valuable service, it's a good step for us to recognize, yeah, we're gonna be user-friendly around here, and this is one way for us to be user-friendly.
I think I think that'd be good to have it into policy, and if we need to put it into code, then we'll
Yeah.
go there, but let's take that as a step basis.
Great.
And any time limit? Open-ended, or do you want to set?
It's
Certain time
quarter
period.
to 3 now, you wanna wait till 3:30, or do you want, how you wanna do that, Stan?
I don't know.
It's a good thought. If we're, I guess the developer needs to tell us what the time frame is when those improvements will be in. Or do we want to have a 6-month limit on this? Do we want to have a year limit on this? I guess that's the question.
Well, I mean, everything does expire in 180 days, right, from the time of application.
Go ahead.
And at that point, everything could be null and void and he's basically given up as an abandoned project. So if 6 months is the magic number, then so be it.
I'm gonna go to Commissioner Bulloss.
I think 6 months sounds good.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I
Freud?
can live with that, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Put a little
You have a
pressure on the
consensus.
developer.
6 months.
Thank you.
Not that they have any now.
There you go. Hi, O silver.
IO silver.
All right.
Uniformity, that's what I like.
Ducks in a row.
I know.
Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to saunter till 3 o'clock.
3.
So moved.
Have a motion? All. Bye. Motion to saunter. We will saunter till 3 o'clock. John, would you move your massive heat? Thank you. Great, commissioners, we're back. It's 3 o'clock and this is a discussion. Again, we're at, our work session continued for Monday, March 11th. This is discussion item number 6, a discussion regarding the transfer station finances. We've got Ron Brown, but we've also got Sean Wilkinson, Scott Park, Bill Ross. We've got Brian Cowan here in the room. Mark, did we miss you? Stephanie Russell? Sean Wilkinson, probably twice. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna start with you, Sean. Go ahead.
Thank you. Commissioners, it's that time of the year where the cities are starting to put together their budgets, and now the county has a picture of our final financials for 2023. So it's time for us to make a decision about whether or not we are going to have any increases in our tipping fees at the transfer station. So I've worked with Scott, and he has a presentation. He can show you where we're at as far as the numbers go. And then he can turn it back to me and we'll make a recommendation to you.
Very good.
Okay,
Mr. Park?
so can you see that up there? Is that big enough for me to make it bigger?
Well, it's a little, it's right here. If I turn around this way, I'll.
Yeah.
All right, all right. Okay, so revenues were up $2.2 million. That's a combination of the increased tipping fee, but also increased volume. And then our disposal costs
There you go.
were up $1.6 million. So revenues were up 20%, nearly 20%. Expenses were up 26% on the disposal costs. That again is the factor of it costs us more to dispose of the garbage, and we also had more garbage to dispose of. But at the end of the year, we ended with just over $1 million in surplus from our operating side of the house. Plus, we added a little bit of interest income and some sale of some capital assets. So we ended the year adding $1.4 million to the fund balance. So that's pretty good. That's around where we want it to be. Now, this is an enterprise fund, so the capital equipment expenditures aren't actually expensed. They're added to the assets on the balance sheet, and then we depreciate them over time. You'll notice our depreciation went up almost double, from 370,000 to almost 700,000. That's because we invested a lot of money in capital equipment and capital improvements this year.
Yes, we did.
What that means, and here, let me make this a little bit bigger. So if you look at our cash balance went from 4.4 million to 3.4 million. So we actually spent $1 million more of cash more than we had in the prior year. So, excuse me, our cash balance went down by $1 million. So we spent $1 million more cash than we collected during the year. And that's primarily because of our capital equipment, and you can see how that worked. You know, we added a bunch of building and improvements and also some machinery and equipment. When you look down at what that means to the fund balance, so this number right here, this unrestricted fund balance is what we use to judge the operations of the transfer station. We went from 3.9 to 3.6 million, a decrease of $300,000. Oops, don't want to do that. However, even with $3.6 million, that is almost 30% of our operating expenditures, which is right in the sweet spot between the 24 and the 36 that we want it to be in. So I think that we're fine. I don't or anticipate that we would need to raise the transfer station revenues unless we get some extraordinary cost inflation or something like that happens. If we continue on as we are now, I think we're going to be fine for the next year.
Yeah. And commissioners, we will see a July 1st increase from Republic. That happens every year. It's our annual 3%. But we expect that. We don't see any extraordinary increases happening. Our recommendation is that with the large increase that we passed on to the cities last year, that we wait a year before we increase fees at the transfer station. We recognize that we increase salaries and that will hit us just a little bit, but with what Scott has showed us, where we're at that 30% level, we feel like we can go a year before we give an increase and give the cities a break. So that would be our recommendation.
Commissioner Bolus.
I'm in 100% agreement. We went over this morning.
Okay, great. I'm glad. Thank you so much for doing that. Commissioner Froh?
No, I would agree with that. I think it doesn't justify an increase right now. I do have a question though. On our admin fee that we put in when Commissioner Jenkins was here, we reduced that just in the last, what, 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, just late January.
Late January. So where are we?
So that's and I mean, that's a good question, but that is actually separate from this. So this is the transfer station operations, but the admin fee you're talking about is what we're putting on the municipal services fund, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
it doesn't have anything to do with the transfer station. We collect that as Sean's fee for administering the Upper and Lower Valley garbage.
And I pretty much knew that. I just wondered,
Yeah.
since I had you in the room, I wanted to see where we were with that balance. And if we'd had any, feedback after that reduction. From anybody.
I haven't heard anything from anyone, which means no one complained and no one thanked me, so.
Well, I personally want to thank you, Sean.
All right.
We're still collecting a lot on that. We haven't reduced it. We've reduced it and we're going to continue to reduce it over time. I think we're going to be able to justify that. We'll see how the state auditor's office, the new state auditor, whoever gets in, what they see. Depending on who gets in, they may be a little more lenient or not, but, we are collecting more money than we're spending, and so they don't like that when the fees collect more, and they don't want you to use a fee as a tax, basically to subsidize general operations.
And we don't, but on the flip side of this, we also are, being responsible. I think the fact that this is in the sweet spot. There is one thing on this, commissioners, I'd like to talk about, and that is, Jessica and or Sean.
Yep.
I'd like to get the message out to the mayors and to the public. But hey, look, even though we're gonna get an increase in the wholesale of this, or the cost is going up 3%, we were able to absorb it, so you will not see an increase in your fees.
Basically, that'd be the mayor's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also to the public too, hey, look, it's responsible government. It's always good. It's good news. Because you guys are doing a good job out there, Ron.
Doing a great
This is
job.
good news.
I hear nothing but good things from people who go out there, so.
Good, appreciate that.
Cal, you got any questions here? Director Cowan? Mr. Quinney? You're just quiet as a. Okay,
Give him a chance, he'll have a chance.
commissioners, anything else on this then?
No.
Particular thing?
No, I like what you're doing here.
Okay, there you go. That's the closing statement. I appreciate what you're doing. Thanks, Ron. Do you have anything you'd like while you're here in a public setting and
No,
crow about, or people doing good?
no, we're doing good. We're just moving forward, making it pretty out there.
You really are. And one of the things that I like during the slower times, not that winter's slower, but it is a little slower because you had that huge pile of trees and brush, and it's all ground up, it's all moved away, you've taken that mammoth pile and got it all moved around and doing really good.
We moved a lot of it out to the landfill so they can use it for the winter.
Uh-huh.
But we've also used it across the front,
Oh,
beautify the front end of it. If you've been
Yeah,
out there
definitely done
lately,
that.
you'll see what we've been doing. They're grinding down, gonna take a lot of that on the backside of the old canal where the C&D will be coming around. That'll all be done the same thing. So we're gonna look all the way around at the
that'll
same.
be nice.
That'd be great.
How's the new pad working out?
It's working out really good.
Is it?
You talking about the C&D or
Yeah,
the,
C and D, yeah.
I haven't started the new C&D yet.
Oh, they haven't? Okay.
We've got to do some site improvements
All right.
before we get that operational.
So it's not started yet, though? Okay.
You've even cleaned up where you had the problems with the trucks, that whole thing, the operation was clean and nice the last time, it was only 3 or 4 days ago. So you guys have done a wonderful job. I look at that all the time.
I've got them cleaning every day.
Thank you.
Got somebody on a broom today sweeping, so.
Really? Good.
So we just want it to look nice when you guys come out or the public comes out and don't want to look like a dumps.
Yes,
Yeah, it looks good in there,
yeah, it does. Did a great
all
job.
around there. You've done a really good job. Okay,
That's great.
with
to
that
know.
then, commissioners, then we're good to go. We'll just see if we can't get to the next thing then.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ron.
Ready?
Tell your staff we appreciate it
Right
out
back.
there.
I will do.
Sorry, what?
Okay.
Yeah.
I just show up. Yeah, the reason I asked that, Scott, is I really think we have to be careful that we don't keep too much in that fund. Digital's the one that's really.
Yes.
Well, we're still, on recording, right? No.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
If you want to catch it.
I just wanted to mute it, as we go off.
Commissioners, as we continue back with our work session on this Monday, the 11th of March, we'll go into, we need a motion to go into closed session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Commissioner Bolos,
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Farr, and Commissioner, the chair votes aye. Thank you. We'll now go into closed session. For those of you who are done, this will be our final item on our work session today. We'll come out basically to close. Unless there's action taken. Thank you for joining us today.